Hello, this is a brief introduction to the back end of Zoom. You've seen the front end, which is the one with all the pictures that you'll see during a meeting. However, each of you will get an account on Zoom for your management of your particular meetings and classes. And this is going to just walk you through some of the basic features on the back end so you know how it works. When you first log in, you're going to get to your profile page. Whoops, go away. Get to your profile page here, and you can put your picture in if you want, and you'll have your email address and a bunch of other things here. The important thing to note here is this URL, the HTTPS J2142 whatever. Each of you will have your own individual meeting ID. You do not have to worry about stomping on anybody else, and that URL will stay the same throughout the entire semester. So if you want to go ahead and post this on the top of your Moodle page, just email it out to all your students. It's the same URL every single time. So the students don't have to go and try to figure out the new URL for every single class that you have. In this case, it'll always be the same one. Now, when you actually get into the meeting settings, there's a tab for this, and what you'll find is there's a variety of settings here that you can decide how things are set up. For the most part, you don't really need to change any of these because you can set most of them for each individual meeting, and it's easier to do that within the Meetings tab. So we'll go to the Meetings tab, and what you'll see is a long list of potential meetings. Now, if you want to go ahead and schedule a new one, it's pretty straightforward. You click the button that says schedule a new one. So in this case, you might say that you want to have your class meet at a specific time. And you can put a little description in. And then you'll have to say, when do you want it to be? A little calendar icon pop up. I want it to be, let's say I'll start next Monday at bright and early at 9 a.m. Okay. And I'll have a class for 2 hours at that point. Time zone set correctly. You can also set this up so that you can go ahead and create all your meetings. If you know you're always going to meet with your students at 9 a.m. on Mondays, click the recurring meeting button. You say that you want to do it weekly, and you'll put an end date on here. The last date actually works out well because that's the number of times that you might need it. And that will go ahead and set up a weekly meeting for you. And so you won't have to recreate this every single time. You can just go ahead and set them up well in advance and you'll be done. By default, as I said, it will start off with the video of the host and the participant turned off. If you want to make sure that just set it automatically so that it's usually on when you start up. I strongly encourage you to leave the audio at both. This will allow students, if they have some sort of massive computer problem, to call in on a telephone rather than on a computer and have all sorts of issues. They obviously won't be able to see you, but at least they'll be able to hear you, so they'd be able to participate in a discussion. A couple of meeting options. Most of these that you might want to think about are enable join before host. What this would do is if, for example, you're running a little late, your students could all join before you do. So the meeting, as I said, your class could start and be just like you would show up a minute or two late. You might want to set that one as a default. Another one that's potentially useful is the mute participants on entry. If you remember, a lot of times you'll see people when they all log in, when you get 12 people logging in all at once, all their microphones are active, there's a lot of crosstalk, there's a lot of noise. If you set this up by default, they start off being quiet and then they have to deliberately turn their microphone on to be able to speak. You can also toggle them on and off so long as you're the host. You can decide whether they're talking or not. The other one that you'll have is the record the meeting automatically tab. By default, this will automatically start recording any meeting that you're in, and it will, in this case, store the video of the meeting in the cloud. We have a limited amount of storage here, so it might be possible that if you don't want to keep these, go ahead and delete them or turn this off entirely. But if you have a student that you know might not be able to make it, or you just want to make sure that the students can review some material or something like that, you can leave this checked. And when you're all done, what you'll get is a set of recordings that you can go ahead and put the URLs up in Moodle or something like that. So when you're all done, you just click the Save button. And there you go. Now you have, oops, go away. Now you have a set of meetings. And there'll be a button specifically that says, I can start this meeting. But if I go back to my list here, you'll see the long list. Here's my class section 1 meeting. There's a meeting ID attached to it. And at any point, I can go ahead and hit the start button. That will go ahead and start the meeting. And I will go ahead and turn this off because I don't actually need it. And meeting for all. Okay. Once this is all done, you can go back. And what will happen here is once you're all done and you've closed the meeting, what you'll find is that if you set the recording to be automatic, you'll come over here and you'll see that there is in fact a recording that's been made of this section. There's an ID for it, there's a start time here, and as it'll say, in this case, processing and recording. In my case, it's probably going to take very little time because I was only on for about 10 seconds. However, for you, if you have a class that's an hour or two long, the processing time on this can be relatively substantial, on the order of an hour or two. So if you have a student who really wants to see it, you're just going to tell them to hold off for a little bit. In a minute, hopefully this will go ahead and finish. It may not and finish in time for my video, but once it's done, it'll have a URL that you can go ahead and just email to the students. You can copy it and put it in your email and send it off, or post it in Moodle, for example, if you want the students to be able to review it from there. If you don't want one, you can just go ahead and once it's finished recording, there'll be a little checkbox here and you can go ahead and hit the delete button and get rid of it if you don't need it. That's pretty much all the things that you need for this particular setup. Basically, what you need to know is, here's the URL that everybody needs. Once you have the meeting going, once you've got it all scheduled, you want to hit the start button. Once you hit the start button, you'll get your little interface will launch and then everybody can join in. When you're all done, just close it and the recording should appear someplace on this page once it's all finished. If you have any other questions, feel free to give me a call. Thanks.